Good evening. Tonight there are new developments in several cases, including 6 arrests from last month's programme.
In fact, there's been substantial progress, not least on 2 of last month's reconstructions. In the case of the murdered helicopter engineer Nimal Samarasina, a woman has been charged in connection with his death. And there's been some progress on that dreadful series of attacks on motorists. We can't give you full details on that tonight, but hopefully we'll have more next month.
John Shippey was almost everyone's good friend, it seems. Generous, gregarious, and though no one knew where it had come from, he had plenty of money. He relished popularity. He had lots of friends and lots of girlfriends. But clearly not everyone was so impressed by Mr. Shippey. Someone decided to kill him. And maybe in the next 10 minutes after this reconstruction, we'll discover who they are and why they did it. Doves is in South Croydon, Surrey. And after working there for almost a quarter of a century, John Shippey had risen from a junior in the accounts department to become the finance director. Since his death, the business has discovered that about £750,000 has been siphoned from their subsidiary finance company over a period of at least 8 years.
I'm going to the cricketers. Then I'm going to get some agreements signed.
OK, have a nice weekend.
You too, darling.
Bye.
I'd known John for nearly 8 years, ever since I've joined the company. He was a big man. He had lots of presence. You always knew when he was in a room. If you had a problem and you asked him to solve your problem, he'd always try to do it. His local was the cricketers, and he had used the pub for many, many years, for both business and for pleasure.
Here comes the boy. Was you in trouble?
All right.
All right, John. Hello, John.
That's a good girl.
John was a very outgoing man.
Hello, lad. That's a lad.
That's in the pub in the cricketers.
All right, John. Now then, what's this about Friday? Everybody all right for it?
Yeah, no, that's right. John lived his life in thousands of little compartments, and you didn't really cross over from one to the other unless he really allowed you to.
All right, lads, who's up for snacking?
He was a completely larger-than-life character. A very kind, generous man, and just good fun to be with. I just cannot think of any reason at all why anyone would want to do any harm to John at all.
The night of Saturday, the 14th of December, 1991. John and one of his girlfriends, Carol, had dinner with Joe Kavanagh and his wife at a local restaurant.
You sure you don't want to drink, John?
No. I'm knocking it on the head until after Christmas.
Have you told them about the new boat?
No.
Got it?
Yeah.
Where'd you get the white one?
Yeah, 40-footer. You ready for Spain in May?
Is everything all right?
Great. Yeah, as usual. Osman, since it's Christmas, why don't you take a photograph? Give him the camera.
Here you are.
Here, John. You going to Paris tomorrow?
No, I've got an appointment.
Oh, see you Monday or in a week or something.
Yeah, sure.
Cheers.
Bye-bye, darling.
The 4 of them left the restaurant at about 1 o'clock, and John drove Carol to the house he'd helped her buy in Ightham in Kent. Although he owned a number of homes, he spent much of his time here and would normally stay with Carol at the weekend. But theirs was a volatile relationship, and that night they had a sudden row. John left the house between 2 and 3 in the morning in his blue Ford Sierra Sapphire. It wasn't until 3 days later that Carol realized something might be wrong.
Hello?
Hi, Carol. It's Joe.
Oh, hello, Joe. How are you?
All right, thanks. You haven't seen John at all, have you? He hasn't been down the cricketers for a couple of days now.
No, I haven't seen him since Saturday. In fact, I've had Doves on the phone saying he missed an important meeting yesterday. It's not like him at all. I'm beginning to get quite worried.
20 miles west of Ightham, the M25 crosses the M23 near the village of Merstham. Later that night, a witness was approaching the village on his way back from a badminton match.
I was driving along Rockshore Road towards Warwickswold, and I became aware of a car in front who was driving erratically. The driver and the passenger were looking in both directions and became nervous when I came up behind them. The moment I overtook them and went to look in and see exactly who was in the car, they both deliberately turned away, so I really only had a look at the back of their heads.
The small network of roads next to the motorway is usually quiet, leading only to a scattering of private houses or to a nearby gypsy camp. Yet at 10 to 11, another witness saw something there that struck him as peculiar.
As I passed the junction of Rockshore Road and continued down towards Warwickswold, there were two cars parked on the near side. The car I came to first was a Ford Cortina, and the car in front of that was a blue Ford Sierra with a man leaning into the back of the passenger compartment. And as I passed them, I picked up the headlights in the mirror of the car, which I thought was odd. If one of the cars had broken down, that both of them had got their headlights on.
In London today, the serious fraud...
Just down the road, a couple was watching Newsnight.
And the BBC has learned that a secret...
Oh, God, what was that?
I don't know. Sound like I come from the motorway. But you stay here, I'll have a look.
No, I'll come with you.
Having picked my wife up and entered Warwickswold again, there was a blue Sierra which was completely engulfed in flames. And I thought at the time that was the car that I'd just seen previously and passed about 20 minutes earlier.
Fine rescue.
Yes, what's the address?
In Merstham. Has a car file, Warwickwold, Merstham. We're on our way, sir.
There'd been a spate of abandoned cars in this area, and this witness was compiling a video of them. John Shippey's body was found in the boot of his burnt-out Sierra. He died from stab wounds. These are identical glasses to the ones he was wearing. They're Sofilo sporting glasses. They're missing, as is this watch, which is a fairly distinctive Seiko watch. So if you've seen these abandoned somewhere... And John Beavers, the cases, we saw him putting identical cases to these into the back of his blue Sierra Sapphire. The cases are missing too.
Yes, they are. He kept all his personal and business papers in these cases, and he wouldn't go anywhere without them. The larger one is a Samsonite, hard grey plastic. The other one is a maroon leather case, both with combination locks. I would very much like to know where those cases are.
Now let's just fix dates in people's minds. This is 10 days before Christmas. It was a bitterly cold night that Sunday night.
Certainly. Sunday morning there would have been a very heavy frost on the car.
Now, there was this 3-4 days between his last sighting and the discovery of the car. So somewhere that blue Ford Sierra Sapphire went during that period. It must have been garaged somewhere, left out on the streets.
It's critical to our investigation. We must know where that car was. It was certainly somewhere for those 3 days.
H613 CWS, as you can see. Where do you think it probably was? What sort of area?
I would say it was in eastern Surrey, north-west Kent, maybe south London, Croydon, those sort of areas. It may have been outside a lockup. Someone may have seen it obstructing their driveway. We really must find out where that car was for those 3 days.
Now, there was an implication, as we saw in the reconstruction, that he had an appointment on the Sunday.
Yes, despite all the people we've seen, and we've seen numerous members of his close associates and business acquaintances, nobody has mentioned having that appointment with him on that Sunday, and I would very much like to hear from anybody who's made arrangements to meet John on that Sunday, the 15th of December.
We heard how he sort of compartmentalised his life. I mean, do you think you've now spoken to everybody who knew him?
No, he was a very complex character indeed, and in fact the way he compartmentalised his life has made my inquiry even more difficult. There's possibly parts of his life now that we haven't actually entered into, and if anybody else who's listening to this programme who knew John Shippey, was a girlfriend of John Shippey, had business dealings with John Shippey, who we haven't spoken to, please contact us.
Just, it's a bit of a long shot this, but 3 canisters like this, camping canisters of gas, butane gas, were what detonated that explosion in the car. Now, each of them has serial numbers on the bottom, and the 3 in the back of the car, the serial number's 00491, and if you sold those to somebody before Sunday the 15th of December, remember anything about them, 00491, do please give us a call. Mr. Beavis and his colleagues are waiting for anybody who's got any information. Here's the number, 081 811 8181. Remember, if you prefer, you can speak to a BBC researcher. Or you can call Reigate Police Station direct. That's on 0737 765 040. That's 0737 765 040.
We had a very quick response to some of the appeals we had on last month's programme. The fastest one was to a case on photocall in which someone had used stolen credit cards. He'd been caught on camera buying video equipment. 18 viewers gave the same name, and a man eventually surrendered himself in Mansfield. He has since been charged with theft and deception.
You may recall pictures of a couple on last month's photocall. They were wanted in connection with deceptions, chiefly involving stolen personal computers. One Crimewatch viewer thought the couple looked familiar, and a man has now been charged with theft and deception. And now to this month's photocall. Here to take us through the faces are David Hatcher and Jackie Hames.
First, Wiltshire police are keen to trace this man, Edwin Terence Willis. He may have information about a series of deceptions at hotels across the country. He's about 6 foot and has a number of tattoos, including True Love, written across his knuckles. If you know where he is now, please ring.
Just before midday on the 27th of April, this man walked into the Leeds Permanent Building Society in Yeadon High Street, near Leeds, West Yorkshire. Using what's believed to be a semi-automatic weapon, he demanded money from the cashiers. The same man is also believed to have carried out another robbery not far away at the National Provincial Building Society in Guiseley on the 20th of March. On both occasions, he was wearing a brown cap, beige jacket and trousers, and spoke with a soft, possibly assumed Irish accent. Do you recognise him?
Thames Valley police are keen to talk to this couple. It's believed they may have information about a series of chequebook frauds. Around Oxfordshire and North London during 1990, hundreds of stolen cheques were cashed. Around the middle of 1991, more transactions started up in the Essex area. The man is Victor Shipton. His wife Carol may be using the names Carol Burgoyne or Carol Everett. It's thought they may be in the Rochford area of Essex, making frequent visits to Oxford. In June last year, Victor Shipton hired a red Ford Fiesta, registration number D289CDX. We think he may still be driving it, so if you've seen the car or know where the 2 of them are now, please ring.
If you're in a pub right now, take a look around. You might see Edward Cruikshank. He's known to like a drink, and the flying squad are anxious to talk to him. On March the 16th in East London, this Security Express van was hijacked and robbed. Edward Cruikshank is 50 and has a South of England accent. If you've seen him or have information on any of our other photo call cases, please call us now.
And here's the number, 081 811 8181, 081 811 8181.
Our next case could very well have been a murder. In fact, there's no doubt it would have been. Only the victim's knowledge of first aid techniques and extraordinary presence of mind saved her life. So irrational was the attack that police have asked us to protect the identity of everyone involved. The real witnesses appear in our film. We only hear their voices. The witnesses don't appear, we just hear their voices. We don't use the victim's real name, and she only appears in silhouette. Finally, the routine you'll see for collecting takings has been entirely changed since the attempted robbery we're about to see took place. The reconstruction begins on Monday the 23rd of March at Kirkstall in Leeds. The Kirkstall Lights pub is the head office of a chain of 4 pubs in the West Yorkshire area. Marion had been the company's secretary for the past 3 years.
Right then, let's be off.
It's Monday. Dave was to spend the morning visiting the other 3 pubs and collecting some of the takings. And for the first time, Marion was going with him.
Another thing is, there's about
Dave thought it more beneficial if I could come along. He could do the monies and I could do the paperwork. By going out, I get an insight into exactly what the directors are doing and what's happening. I was looking forward to going out on the day.
Their last port of call was to be the Travellers' Rest in the Crossgates area of Leeds. And during the morning, various witnesses noticed two men hanging about near the pub. At about midday, the secretary noticed a police car arriving on a routine call.
As soon as they saw the police car, then they moved across the road, so obviously that he wouldn't see them, you know, so they looked a bit suspicious then.
Around that time, Dave and Marion were 17 miles away at their first stop in Bradford. While Marion checked through the paperwork, Dave collected up the takings. A few minutes later, they were on their way to the next pub at Hawksworth, another 9 miles on. Back at the Travellers' Rest, another witness saw the two men about 100 yards from where they'd been seen 15 minutes earlier.
It surprised me why they were stood there, because there's no bus stops, there's no taxi rank, there's no shop. So definitely up to no good.
Dave and Marion were finished at Hawksworth by about 1 o'clock.
We were at Hawksworth just long enough to collect the monies. We then moved on to the Leeds City Centre Bank, where Dave then banked the monies.
Half an hour later, having deposited all the cash, they arrived at the Travellers' Rest.
Come on, I'm starving.
Me too. Are we going to have lunch first?
You bet. We'll leave the paperwork till later.
Okay. I don't know what I want to eat.
About 20 minutes after that, 500 yards away from the Travellers' Rest, another witness was startled by two men sprinting past him and driving off at breakneck speed in a silver Vauxhall Cavalier. They turned off left in the direction of the Travellers' Rest.
Thanks.
We're just about to shut the food counter. Would you like anything else?
Not for me, thanks.
No, I'm fine, thanks.
The Cavalier was next seen parked opposite Dave's BMW in the pub car park. It's now about 3 o'clock.
We'll go straight home. Look at him there.
Although he was laughing, the man appeared to be alone.
No, he's got to laugh about.
It was 3:10 when Dave and Marion were ready to leave.
Bloody close.
I thought at that point, that it was some of the lads just having a joke with me, because that's the way that the company is. We are a sort of a friendly company.
Get off!
I then found myself looking down the barrel of a gun. The gun was 2 foot away from my face. At this point I realised it wasn't what I suspected in the first place.
Give me the money!
I gave the man the bag. The bag was out of my hand, and then the man shot me. It was very calculated, and I felt he knew exactly what he was doing.
Marion was shot in the neck at point-blank range.
Call an ambulance! Now!
I realised at this point that I had to get down onto the floor on all fours, get rid of the blood out of the airways, and come back again, just to keep conscious.
Yeah, it's Travellers' Rest at Crossgates. We need an ambulance, quick. Yeah, I think someone's been shot in the car park.
Moments later, the Cavalier was seen speeding down Bryan Crescent nearby, closely followed by a silver Ford Orion.
The attacker who shot me, I really would like to ask the man, face to face, why he would want to shoot me. I have nothing against anyone at all, especially when I gave him the bag. I can't understand why he would want to shoot me. I have 2 daughters, I have a husband, and I have family. He could have robbed a lot of people of one person.
Well, John Chambers, Marion was very lucky to survive that shot.
Well, it was more than lucky. It was practically a miracle, because the bullet went straight through her neck, and it missed a jugular vein and a spinal column by fractions of an inch.
And she still hasn't fully recovered, has she?
No, she still hasn't fully recovered. I anticipate she will recover physically, but it'll take a while for her to recover mentally.
Now, we saw at the end of the film the attackers driving off in the Silver Cavalier, followed by a Silver Orion. You're sure that Orion was involved in the incident?
Yes, we believe that the Orion was also used by the attackers. It's a Silver Orion. It's a 1.6 gear injection. We're keen to trace that vehicle. The Cavalier was abandoned 6/10 of a mile away, in Sandway, near to the junction with the York Road. We believe they transferred to the Orion, and would like to hear from anyone who might have seen them.
And another positive thing, you do have very good descriptions of the suspects.
Yes, we do. The first man is about 25 years of age. He's 5 foot 8 inches tall with a stocky build. He has short blonde hair. He was wearing a brown stone-washed jacket and blue jeans. The second man, again 25 years of age, with a heavy build. He has dark brown hair and a very distinctive bushy moustache. He's described as wearing a tan leather bomber jacket and dark trousers.
What about the third man, the man who seemed to be laughing to himself, sitting in the Cavalier in the Travellers' Rest car park?
Well, we have an artist's impression of him. He's described as being in his late 20s. He's got a thin face, a small chin, and his hair is described as mousy, short and neatly cut.
Do you know which of the men fired the gun?
No, we don't, because the gunman was wearing a ski mask similar to this.
Right. And that's
note it's got distinctive red stitching or red piping around the face.
It is very hard to understand why the man shot Marion, even though he'd taken the money. What sort of person do you think you're dealing with?
Well, he's obviously a very dangerous man indeed. As the film has shown, she handed over the bag, she did it exactly as he required, and he quite calmly, quite deliberately shot her in the face. This man is clearly very violent, he's very, very irrational, he must be caught, because the next victim might not be so lucky.
Right, it's very important that you do ring if you can help us at all with that then. Detective Inspector Chambers and his colleagues are waiting here for your call, and this is the number here, of course, 081 811 8181, or you can call Millgarth Police Station in Leeds direct, and that's 0532 413 022. That's 0532, the code for Leeds, 413 022.
More news from last month's programme. We showed clothing that had been stolen, including these Wrangler T-shirts made in Egypt. 6 tons of them had been stolen, and Crimewatch viewers all around the country rang to say they'd seen them. As a direct result, 3 men have been arrested and charges are now pending.
There were also important calls on the murder of Jim Morrison, an off-duty police officer who chased a handbag thief through the streets of London's Covent Garden. The stolen handbag was recovered close to where Mr. Robin Morrison was stabbed. The bag contained items from several other robberies, and a Crimewatch viewer recognised some of the contents as hers. That's helped to pin down some of the thief's movements. Other calls have helped eliminate a number of suspects, but meanwhile the search for Mr. Morrison's killer goes on.
There are so far fairly few calls on the John Shippey murder. Still very anxious to find where his blue Ford Sierra Sapphire was between the 15th and the 18th of December. Thought to be in the South London, Croydon, Surrey areas. We've got a name given, though, for the Horsforth armed robbery, and Edward Terence Willis, the sighting of him, and we think of Edward Cruikshank. And as you can see, quite a lot of calls coming in right now. Let's go now for this month's incident desk. Here are Detective Constable Jackie Hames and Superintendent David Hatcher.
First tonight, a particularly tragic case. 25-year-old Barry Bradley was murdered for shouting at a motorist. It happened in Kingsley Road, Hounslow, on Friday the 31st of January. Just before midnight, Barry and his fiancée left an Indian restaurant. As they crossed over the road, a speeding car almost hit them. Barry shouted at the driver, who did a U-turn and came back towards them. He opened the window and Barry leant into the car. Moments later, he collapsed in the street. Barry had been stabbed, and later that night he died in hospital. The car was a dark-coloured two-door hatchback. The driver was alone and looked Asian. He was about 5'8" tall, in his early 20s, with black straight hair. He had wispy hair on his jawline and cheeks, with a thin moustache, and was well-spoken. Buses run regularly down Kingsley Road, even at midnight, and Hounslow East Tube Station is nearby, so we feel sure somebody must have seen something. If you recognise the man, or can help in any way, please call. Remember, it was murder and there is a reward.
Crawley police need your help to catch a jewel thief. He'd made a poor attempt to disguise himself with boot polish and was chased by police from the shop. On Wednesday the 1st of April, the alarm went off at this jeweller's and police arrived to see a man on the roof. He ran off and in his haste dropped this bag. Do you recognise it, or do you know who used it? He's white, in his mid-20s and about 5'11".
And finally, how two quick-thinking counter-assistants stopped an armed robbery at a post office. On Tuesday the 25th of February at 3:20, a man went into Heath Hayes post office in Cannock. He was armed, and seconds after demanding money, he fired a shot at the assistants. Luckily, neither was injured as the bullet hit the glass security screen. They dived to the floor and managed to press the panic button. The man then ran off and got into this stolen Vauxhall Cavalier, which was later found abandoned 3/4 of a mile away in Hill Street. We believe this man is the robber. He was seen earlier in the day outside the post office in the red Cavalier. He's in his late 20s and has thick brown hair with prominent dark eyebrows. It's likely he was also responsible for a series of house burglaries committed earlier that day in the West Midlands area. If you can help on this, or any of our other incident desk cases, please call.
Here's the number.
And the number, as ever, 081 811 8181. That's 0811 8181. Collecting the calls here, we've had one very prompt call after the shooting of Marion in Kirkstall in Leeds. The caller has given a name, which is being followed up now. One call on the Seco watch has been received, similar to the one that John Shippey wore. That has gone missing. A report on a briefcase, similar to one of John Shippey's briefcases. We're having a lot of calls on the photocall cases at the moment, and some more calls on the John Shippey murder, so we'll keep you posted.
Crimewatch doesn't make appeals for missing persons. If someone chooses to make off without telling family or friends, well, you know, it may be reckless, selfish, thoughtless of the worry that they'll have caused, but it's not a crime. Tonight, though, I'm asking one person, please call home. Dinah McNicol, if you're watching, will you call your father, your grandma, or Sarah? All of them are waiting by the phone right now. All they want to hear is that you're alive and well. The fact is that Sergeant Derek Nichol here fears that Dinah has been abducted and may be dead. Dinah's family and friends and one of her teachers have taken part in our reconstruction of the days that led up to her disappearance. None of them has seen her since she went to a rock festival last August. And with the festival season due to start again soon, this appeal is aimed especially at anyone who saw Dinah last year.
So how's everything going then? It's going really great, actually. I'm getting on really well with Dad, which is great.
Before she vanished, Dinah was in good spirits. She'd finished her A-levels and had told her father she'd spend the summer unwinding, maybe travelling.
In 1980, her mother was killed in a traffic accident. She was forced to grow up rather quickly.
Maybe go to India or somewhere.
She did admire what her sister had done, and her elder sister, and she wanted to do similar sort of thing, like do all her studies, get her A-levels, and go to college or university.
Dinah had been quiet but self-composed at school and was expected to do well, especially by her history teacher, Paul Laxmore.
So Henry VII, her background and difficulties in childhood, I think gave her a greater experience than other pupils had, and she was therefore often the person who other pupils turned to for help.
This is a rock festival at Deptford in southeast London. On the 27th of July, this film was taken by one of Dinah's friends. Next day, Dinah hitched home, and not far from her old school, was spotted by her former teacher.
I was driving through East Essex on Sunday afternoon and saw Dinah walking on the side of the road. She was instantly recognisable as Dinah because of her hair and the clothes that she was wearing, so I pulled in and offered her a lift. I knew that she often hitchhiked and she was quite a long way from home, so it seemed to make sense to offer her a lift back. During the course of the conversation, I told Dinah that the following weekend I'd be going down to Chichester. She asked me if she could have a lift down. She was going to a festival in Liphook in Hampshire, which is nearby. I agreed to do that because otherwise I knew that she'd be hitchhiking down.
On her 18th birthday, Dinah became entitled to £2,000. It was compensation for her mother's death. Dinah put it in a building society and then resisted all temptation to draw on it.
Why don't you take some money out of your account? No, I don't want to touch that money. I want to save that for university because I'm going to need it. Yeah.
We'd spent a week at my nan's, Shona, Dinah and myself, and we'd had a good week doing things like playing crazy golf and going swimming and shopping. I dropped her off at High Barnet Tube Station after lunch on Friday.
Oh, thanks for the lift.
It's okay.
And take care, all right?
Yeah, you.
Oh. I'll see you soon.
Yeah, see you, dude. And as I watched her go, I felt very protective and a strong feeling of love for her. And I thought about getting out the car to give her a hug goodbye, but I didn't. And that was the last time that I saw her.
Next day, as arranged, Paul Luxmore dropped Dinah off near the festival at Liphook in Hampshire, where she'd planned to meet with friends.
Oh, thanks for the lift.
You're welcome. See ya.
Cheers.
Take care.
I will.
Dinah seemed to be perfectly happy and relaxed that day. There's nothing unusual about her. She seemed to be pleased to have been over with her exams and with her life ahead of her. But she certainly wasn't the sort of person who'd be taken in by anybody. She wasn't gullible at all, and seemed to give me the impression that after going to the festival she'd be going straight home afterwards.
Dinah spent that evening chatting and listening to the music. Next day, Sunday the 4th of August, the Torpedo Festival, as it was called, wound down.
Yeah, I was thinking, I don't think I want to come back with you. I might hitch down to Portsmouth. Why Portsmouth? Well, why not really? It's not that far away and I've never been. I'm going to leave my stuff here and I'm going to go off for a while. I'll see you back a bit later.
All right. Later. It was about 2.5 hours later when Dinah returned from her walk.
Look, I'm sorry I've been so long, but as I said before, I'm going to hang around here as long as possible, and then I'm going to hitch down to Portsmouth. So I'll see you in a couple of weeks or so.
Dinah did introduce us to the man that she was with, but I can't remember his name. She did say that she just met him. He was in his mid-20s, about 5'9" tall, of medium build, casually dressed with wavy dark hair.
Next morning, in nearby Greyshot, a villager remembers a couple who were walking down the high street. The woman seemed quite young and short. In fact, Dinah's only 4'10". The man was maybe 10 years older. Dinah's exam results arrived soon after she disappeared. She passed them all. She'd almost certainly get into university.
There's no way she would not let us know that she was okay. And we really fear the worst.
Derek Nicol, so do you, don't you?
Yes, we do. We are treating this really seriously. The search we done earlier this year at Bramshop Common was undertaken by Hampshire Constabulary with over 100 police officers over a 3-day period.
So as far as you're concerned now, this is effectively a murder hunt?
It is We can't call it a murder hunt at this stage because obviously we haven't found a body, but we are desperately concerned and we do feel that there is a strong possibility that something has happened to
Now,
her.
one of the clues is that £2,000 that she got as compensation for her mother's death, that she guarded so carefully, all of that has been withdrawn.
With the exception of about £100 odd, yes, it was withdrawn at 13 locations around the south coast between the 8th and the 25th of August of last year, as wide apart as Ramsgate, Margate, Havant, Brighton.
That's all pretty ominous.
Yes.
The chap she was seen with as she left Ramshot Common on the Sunday, the 4th of August, now, I mean, he's by no means likely to be the murderer. I mean, you just need to get hold of him just to find out where she went next.
Indeed, we would desperately like to talk to that young man. As you say, he may not be involved at all, but he will be the person that can give us a clue as to where she went if she left that festival site.
He's 25 upwards, we think, 5'9", we think. We honestly don't know a great deal more about him.
The only thing that is distinctive about him is that he was casually dressed at what was extensively a hippie festival, and that is the only thing the young girls that was with her can remember particularly.
Just clutching at straws, just assuming that Dinah is still alive and just gone off somewhere. Maybe she's joined some sort of sect or something like that.
We have looked into that. It is a very difficult area to look at, but from the character and everything I know about her and discovered from her friends, she is not the sort of person, they believe anyway, to be taken in by one of these sort of sects.
She wore contact lenses, and actually she was very, very short-sighted, wasn't she?
She was indeed. In fact, to coin a phrase, she needed glasses to find her glasses.
So if any optician has seen her, again, it's a heck of a long shot, but I mean, there were -10 or -11.5.
One was -10 and one was -11.5.
Any other help that anybody can give?
At the moment, we have no idea where she went or what happened to her after her friends left her at Bramshot Common.
OK, well, it was Sunday the 4th of August. Very, very hot time last year. If you saw her, please call us. Incidentally, if someone close to you is missing, don't call us. You might like to call the Missing Person Helpline, though, set up by the Susie Lamplugh Trust. There's the number, 081 392 2000, 081 392 2000. Coming back to the Dinah McNicol inquiry, the number here in the studio is 081 811 8181. Or if you think you know anything at all, you can try the Instant Room in Chelmsford. That's on 0245 542 120. 0245 452 120.
Well, now, just before our second file of Photocall faces, some news of a development 6 days ago. On Photocall in March, we showed a man wanted in connection with a murder in South Wales. Though not as a direct result of calls here to the studio, 3 people have been charged with harbouring and a man has now been charged with murder. And now more faces police hope you might recognise. Here to take us through them are Jackie Hames and David Hatcher.
Maybe you know the whereabouts of this man. James Henry Warner comes from Essex and was last seen 6 months ago in London's West End. He has taken jobs as an insurance agent. During March 1989, a series of fraudulent insurance proposals were made out and a large amount of money was paid in commission to the agent concerned. You may know James Warner better as James Mara or James Kitts. He's probably still got that beard and moustache, although the colour sometimes changes. He's 49 and 5'11", so if you know where he is, please call.
Hertfordshire Police would like to speak to this man, seen here opening an account at the Bradford and Bingley Building Society in Hemel Hempstead. Later in the day, a cheque was paid into that account. It was one of 2 cheques that had been stolen from the Elms Industrial Estate in Bedford. The account holder, who may be calling himself Peter Hall, is in his mid-20s to early 30s, 5'10" with a heavy build. His brown hair has blonde streaks, so if you recognise him, please call.
Maybe you know this man. On the 8th of October last year, he robbed the Cheshire Building Society in Stalybridge, threatening staff with what appeared to be a gun. He's between 30 and 35, about 6'2", with a dark beard and moustache. It's possible he had a Lancashire accent. So, if you recognise him or know where he is now, please ring.
Perhaps you know where Kent solicitor Philip John Stokes is now. He was last seen in Dartford at the beginning of April. He may be with Darryl Grimes, a property developer. During 1990, all over the southeast, about £1.5 million was obtained through fraudulent cheques. Accounts were set up using stolen driving licences. Philip Stokes is 39 and 5'10". He sometimes has a moustache. Darryl Grimes is in his late 20s, 5'8" and has a slim build. So if you know where either man is or can help with any of our photocall cases, please call us now.
And there's the number, 081 811 8181, 081 811 8181. There's a lot of calls coming in tonight, a tremendous volume. On the John Shippey inquiry, we think we've got the name of another girlfriend, and I think several other people who knew him, acquaintances, have called in. Not quite clear yet what sort of evidence they can help with. The Essex couple, we think they've been seen in Oxford by an acquaintance, but that was some time ago. Edward Terence Willis, again several sightings. On the Leeds pub shooting, incidentally, someone's called in, we might have a connection with the car, the Orion. Edward Cruikshank, we've got sightings there, and we've got a couple of possible addresses for him. And just got something in here on the Barry Bradley murder. Someone's put forward a name which the police are quite interested in.
Well, we'll have more news for you in Crimewatch Update, I hope. That's at 11:15, just after question time. If you think you just might be able to help on one of the cases you've seen tonight but haven't picked up the phone yet, it is often the smallest details that turn out to be the most important, so please do call. The lines here are going to be open until midnight.
We've been on the air for 8 years now. This is programme number 80. And something we said at the end of programme 1 was clearly appreciated by a lot of viewers, and it became something of a catchphrase. Don't have nightmares, do sleep well. It's clear from letters that we still get, many people still like the reassurance, but others say they find it irritating. Maybe 8 years is enough. So, good night.
Good night.